Today on Real Rescues. A huge wildfire tears through the ancient heathlands of Ashdown Forest.
It's definitely coming this way.
People and buildings are in its path.
Closest property to fire is Heather Cottage. The fire front is moving in the direction of that property.
Hello and welcome to Real Rescues. Extreme weather always puts pressure on the emergency services. The tinder dry summer often leads to an outbreak of grass and forest fires, and they can be some of the toughest to fight. When a small fire begins in the ancient Ashdown Forest, incidentally fictional home of Winnie the Pooh's 100-acre wood, conditions could not have been more challenging. There's no water on site, there are strong winds and high summer temperatures. And if they don't get it under control, it could overrun nearby homes and businesses. A wildfire is tearing through gorse in the forest. It started early afternoon. 2 hours later, 60 acres are alight. 100 firefighters are on the scene. 16 appliances, 2 water carriers and 6 off-road vehicles. The only way to keep track of the flames is from the police helicopter overhead. On board, firefighter Matt Highton.
How far would we say that fire's off those properties? 200 metres? 200 metres.
It's up to him to give the first warning of where the fire is heading.
Closest property to fire is Heather Cottage. The fire front is moving in the direction of that property.
At one of the properties, the headquarters of Cats Protection, a worried member of staff captures the fire on his mobile phone.
It's definitely coming this way.
When we got up close, we could see that it was out of control and it was moving very quickly by that time.
With fire crews from neighbouring West Sussex and Kent now on the ground, control of the operation moves to Assistant Chief Fire Officer Gary Ferrand.
When I arrived at the scene, we had a fire which seemed to be getting out of hand. If that wind changed direction again, the fire gets away from us, then people are in hazardous situations, buildings are in the line of fire, so to speak.
From the air, firefighter Matt has to keep across each fire front, directing resources, trying to contain it.
Unfortunately, it was mainly gorse, very thick. Gorse particularly, it does burn quite ferociously.
The conditions were absolutely perfect for this fire. It was almost a perfect storm.
The firefighters are manning the bridleways, natural fire breaks, and tackling the flames in sections. They have to prevent the fire leaping the breaks. But they need huge amounts of water and there's no natural supply. It all has to be brought in on vehicles and stored in a large plastic dam. They also have a limited supply of foam, but most of the flames are going to have to be beaten out by hand. With the changing winds, this is an unpredictable and dangerous environment for the firefighters.
Normally your first indication, rather than sight, is hearing it. It does make quite a loud sound, and when you can hear it coming towards you, then that's the time that we start getting ourselves prepared and making sure everyone's in the right place.
They're losing the battle to stop the flames at the bridleways. In the helicopter, Matt has to alert fire chiefs. They are now in danger as well.
There's a burnt section travelling back towards command unit.
At the same time, another firewall is being pushed by the wind at speed towards the charity HQ. Sheltering inside, members of staff and many animals.
The wind had changed, the fire front had moved, and it was moving quite rapidly towards the Cats Protection League, moving faster than a walking pace, and it was a large fire front.
Matt Highton to fire command support over. Go ahead, Gary, the fire nearest to the property. Fire starting to break through standing timber. Suggest deploy many resources available down to that end.
A period of time went on, I could feel the wind had changed. So then I became a bit concerned that it could have been here within about 20 minutes.
Our focus of attention was to protect that building and those occupants. And we did that by moving in from the fire where it had already burnt, so we're coming at it from behind and moving in, ahead of it from the Cats Protection League towards the fire front. So we tackled it from 2 directions.
With temperatures already in the high 20s, it's gruelling work.
Wildfire fighting is probably one of the most arduous jobs that we do because of the equipment that we have to wear, our fire kit. Normally if it's wildfire, it means the weather conditions are hot, and length of time. We're normally there for hours.
The temperature of the day was probably the hottest day of the year. And they, coupled with a hot fire situation, we end up potentially with fatigue, firefighters that need to be changed around rapidly.
That stuff in the western corner seems to have pretty much fading out, isn't it? No flames.
Right, okay. I think it has stopped it.
After several hours of trying to contain the fire, there's finally some good news. The wind starts to drop off.
There is that tipping point in the incident where things can either get away from you and you realise that you've actually lost the fire. And the other side of that is actually where you're on top of the fire, you're controlling it and extinguishing it. And so that came about 4 hours into the incident.
The fire has been stopped just short of the buildings.
In the end, it was a couple of 100 metres, but considering the distance and speed that this fire travelled up until that point, it could have done 200 metres in a matter of minutes. I wouldn't have wanted any closer than that.
All in all, 60 acres of heathland have been burned.
This was a large fire, and we did put a lot of resources to this, but in the big scheme of things, the damage that was caused to the Ashdown Forest was actually quite minimal. So the crews were very delighted with the outcome.
Firefighters will work on into the night to make sure the flames don't reignite. Most of the forest has survived, and the local residents remain unaffected.
The cats had no idea that there was anything going on at all because they were safe in the adoption centre, so they remained completely stress-free.